Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Dinner Table Detective Season 1, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This episode ended up being a lot more somber than I thought it would. I would have never guessed the motivations to be what they are, but either way, we're picking up where the last episode left off, and obviously it's revealed that Shiho isn't the one that had an affair. It's actually her husband, Satoshi, who did, and Ishiguro was the one blackmailing him. And it's like, okay, had to pay 30 mil, but then he still kept pestering them. So, but it's like Shiho and Satoshi both have alibis. They were hosting a party from like 7 to 9 in the time frame that the murder's taking place. Like they were hosting a party, so they couldn't have done it. I didn't think it was so interesting how dismissive Shiho was when it was like, she's kind of like, yeah, you handle all this, honey. I'm going on. I mean, I guess it makes sense. At the time, you're like, well, it kind of makes sense because he's the one that had an affair. This kind of goes on him. But she's kind of like, well, we had nothing to do with this, so I'll let you handle this. I got to go practice my lines. It turns out Satoshi ended up going to get breakfast because he's like, yeah, my Shiho slept in, so I went and got breakfast. I normally don't, but I did. Obviously that ends up being super relevant later on. So, but either way, I was just like, I'm still not seeing how this worked, especially when they ended up going to Ishiguro's house, and it seems like he had a family. Like it seems like he has a wife and kids, so I don't know if that's his motivation for doing what he's doing, because that was something thrown in at that point. Like, oh, maybe he was so like money hungry because he was paying for child support. Because they're saying like, oh, he used to live in like a high rise building with his family, so maybe who knows if he's still, because they never came up in the episode, so they might be like, he might be estranged from his family, like he might be just paying child support. Maybe that's the way he is. I don't know. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on, possibly, but. In his house, they found like seaweed and water in the tub. I thought Kishiro's like theory was kind of wild. I'm like, really? Would they go through that much? I'm like, why would you go through that much trouble? But I guess in the grand scheme of things, it did. I guess it's like, right, throwing off the crime scene, because it's like you'd assume he drowned in the water, but he was nowhere near the water when they were discovered. So it's like, how does that? It's like you want to throw off like the crime scene. So I was wondering like, how did he drown? And so. Kichiro's theory is like, hey, they took water from the river, filled up the tub with it, and then drowned him. But then it's like, well, you wouldn't need that much. I mean, wouldn't need enough water to fill like a tub or whatever. But it's like, yeah, like you need to check the like water from the bucket and compare it to like, from the tub, and compare it in the cooler, or compare it to like the water in the river, because that would be the thing of like, how did the seaweed get there otherwise? So. Now the question is like, well, we know that there's motive for Satoshi and Shiho's family, Shiho and Satoshi, to have him murdered, but it's like they both have solid alibis. I did think it was interesting that if you notice, like everyone was drinking because she was specifically pouring everyone drinks. I thought the trick to that was going to be like, well, everyone's a little buzzed, so their concept of time is a little off. I thought that's what it was, but it's like, no, we find out it was to keep people from leaving. So people are less likely to drive away if they were buzzed. So she was keeping everyone a little inebriated. So it's like, oh, I can't leave. I need to probably wait for this buzz to wear off, or just kind of like, just keep the party going long enough, because Kishiro thinks he's got it all figured, because he's like, there's got to be some kind of trick to their alibi, and so it ends up being Reiko going to Kageyama to explain it all. And obviously this all kind of doesn't sit right. I mean, she's trying to rack her brain over it, so she's not really eating, but I think it's also because this case is what it is to her, and we'll get to that in a second. But Kageyama breaks it down the way he does, and it's like, oh, I love basically being like, what was the word he used? He didn't use the word moron, but it's like Reiko was like, no, but you're still pretty much implying it, because she's like basically calling Kishiro kind of basically an idiot, but then like kind of saying that that Reiko's kind of got the same intellectual thing, and she's just like, you're basically calling me. The biggest insult from that whole thing was like, do not compare me to him, and so Kageyama breaks down the case being what it is. I thought was interesting that Kishiro was, interestingly enough, on the right track in a lot of parts of the case, but he went about, like, his thinking about it was wrong. So first and foremost, he was right about the means of murder, but just the way it went down is different, because rather than bringing the water to his house and killing him there, she brought the water to her own house, invited him to the party, got him drunk as well as other people drunk. So while people are drinking, partying it up, she slips away while he's unconscious, drowns him, puts his body away, and then when the party's over, her husband ends up going to sleep. That's when she sneaks out and disposes of the body. Eventually goes to Ishigura's place and dumps the water, setting the crime scene up to make it seem like he was killed at his place. So it's like, right, there would have been no time frame, because it's like a 2-hour trip back and forth. So it's like in that time frame of the murder, they're saying like, right, she wouldn't have had any time, but it's like she did. Like, she tricked you with like this alibi she concocted, not realizing like her home, like basically her yard where she was sitting out with the cars, is where the murder was committed. So throwing, like, making you think the crime scene was actually his place and stuff. Her undoing was twofold. One, the necklace that she had was like a silver spoon. It has like, it's connected to Leo. So I was curious where Leo played a role in all this. Once again, you assumed it was like an affair thing. It turns out, no, that's her son that no one knows about. So we'll get to that later. But silver spoon, because I know like different countries do have their like things that they give kids. Because I think because isn't it like, I believe in Korea, and I'm only picking this up from like manhwa I've read, but I believe in Korea that basically when babies are born, like when you're a little older, you basically put like 3 different items in front of a child, and depending on what item they go towards, it's kind of like determining what their future is going to be. Like, it's more of a traditional thing, but it's kind of like a little bit of a superstitional like tradition. I never really remember. I guess that silver spoon thing is an American thing. I just never. Maybe I knew that. I don't know. Um, but yeah, like that was found at the crime scene, so it definitely points to Shiho. But it was like, right, like she has a solid alibi, but once again, Kageyama ends up destroying that. And I thought was really interesting too about the whole broken alibi thing. That, like I said, Kishiro was right about it. Like this fabricated alibi, and it turns out her also undoing was the car situation. I was like, how does that work? I was like, was it one car having less sakura cherry blossoms on it? But then I was like, oh, and before Kageyama said, I was like, right, Satoshi said he left for breakfast, so why is there more cherry blossoms on the car? It's because she thought like, oh, like when she woke up, it's like, oh my god, there's no cherry blossoms on this. I need to make it seem like the cars never left the driveway. And it's like, yeah, she covered it up again. And then Reiko's like, oh, that's why she took so long to answer the door. So it's like, yeah, she is the one responsible for all of this. And obviously this strikes a chord for Reiko, because I said this last episode, Shiho means a lot to Reiko, specifically like her character from that show, because the way Reiko was like, no, she had nothing to do with this, and I'm gonna prove it. And so like it's like finding out your hero ended up doing a bad thing. It's like as a proponent of justice and getting justice, and and living kind of by that code as a cop. And she respected this character so much, and Shiho kind of represents and embodies that. And you see that flashback when like I need to go back, because I don't know whether it was like, because I can't remember if she was in front of it. I know at one point like she was watching it and she was kicking and being so like enamored by it, like while she was watching the show as a kid. It seemed like she was almost on set of the show, being a part of that world, because she loved the show so much as a kid. And so it's this heartbreaking thing of like this person who was very influential to you as a child. You kind of have to bust them for like a crime that they committed. So her and Kishiro went to go see her and confronted her about everything. And it turns out, yes, she ended up having a child in America, but she tries to play it off like, no, like I didn't care. I don't care about him. He has nothing to do with me. he was already going to expose Ishiguro was already going to expose my husband's stuff, but now he was also going to expose my past relationships. That's all there was to it. So yes, I am the one who did it. But then Reiko holds up the magazine with Leo on it, and it's like, no, you did it for his sake. Like, are you really going to say like you didn't care about him? Don't you want to take this with you? Because she's like, you don't want Leo to get in trouble, because she's like, if what Ishiguro did, like him exposing this would have destroyed Leo's life, because he would have gotten in trouble for like immigration fraud. Because at first I was like, wouldn't he be perfectly fine? Because like the rules are like, I think regardless of your family status, the moment, at least this is how it works in the US. I'm not fully sure if it works like that in other countries as well. Maybe not. I'm sure other countries have their rules about this, but at least in the US, as long as you are born in any of the 50 states, you are considered a US citizen, regardless of your parents' status. And also, and even internationally, as long as you're born on a U.S. military base, you still can have your U.S. citizenship. But I guess maybe it's because, well, it's fraud, because like fake paperwork was made and stuff like that, because she wanted to distance herself from her child, because she claimed to study abroad because she was having a child, and she wanted him to be. She ended up going to America to have her child in secret. And just, I guess it's like the fraud of just like nothing happened, like the like paperwork and stuff. Nothing was done officially. It was done under under a table. So it's like it would have exposed a lot. And so Reiko's like, that was your real motivation for this. You were trying to protect your child. And it turns out like Reiko, the way that they got busted, not Reiko, sorry, Shiho had met with Leo. And it's like, oh my God, like he's getting to meet his biological mom. And they exchanged, like she had a ring commemorating like his birth and stuff. And they exchanged, like the necklace she had with the silver spoon was given to her from him. And she gave him the ring. And Ishiguro took a photo of that, because his hotel is a very notorious place where he busts people and stuff. So, and he was very heartless about the fact. She was begging and pleading, like, do not like expose him. Like, he doesn't deserve this. You'll ruin his life, his career. He's got so much going for him right now. And Ishiguro didn't care. And the way Reiko kind of said it about made it kind of seem like maybe for him, he felt like, oh, you guys are entitled. Like, I'm doing what I can, scraping by just to make money. So I'm going to do some shady stuff. But you guys, you have enough money to burn. You're perfectly fine. Like, maybe he kind of looked at them because they were rich and famous. He had like a kind of a chip on his shoulder about them, where it's just kind of like, screw you guys, you're the rich. So I'm gonna get mine. It's a very scummy thing to do. Like, he is not like the most likable victim in this situation, which, isn't trying to take away like, no, Shiho shouldn't have killed him, but it's still the thing of like, man, like I said, maybe he had his reasons for like, oh, maybe it was just like, I'm trying to take care of my family, like, was the child support thing, but it's like he went about it the scummiest way, and being a scumbag ended up like being his undoing. You make enough enemies, it's only going to be a matter of time before someone like takes actions into their own hands. And should Shiho have done it? No, but still, it makes it even more tragic in the end, because knowing like, right, she did this for her son to protect him. And even Reiko's like, yeah, like none of this Ishiguro's scoop basically stays with them. Now it's like, and she will never admit the reason why she did what she did. And that's the sad thing. Like, Leo's going to know, like, yo, my mom went to prison. So I wonder, he can't ever visit her, too, because it's going to be like, oh, people will probably start asking questions like, why are you visiting this murderer and stuff? So, and obviously it means something to Reiko, because it's still like, right, Shiho did this. But in her mind, it's still like, even though she did do it, she still did it for the sake of, like, protecting someone. So it is a thing of, you're still a little bit of that character. Was like Shakespeare, like, you're still that character that I thought you were, even if you went about it like not the best way, definitely not the best way, that you had like, you did a bad thing, but you still had good intentions with doing the bad, which isn't to justify murder, but it's like, you can at least understand why. You don't have to agree with her actions, but you can understand why she did it. So. And I thought it was interesting because Kageyama was like, oh, so obviously this show meant a lot to you. And she was like, it's the reason why I'm still here. And I'm wondering, I'm like, oh, did like, I think Or I think maybe not still here wasn't the phrasing. Maybe it was just like, I'm here. Like I said, I'm sure it influenced her to be a cop, but maybe it also played a role in like her being away. Like, I don't want to just be a part of my family's business. I want to fight for truth and justice. I want to fight the darkness of this world by, bringing a little light and justice to it. And she was inspired by this as a kid. Or maybe there's some other, like, maybe we won't dive into it, but I feel like there is more to that story, but maybe that all it is. I felt like the way she phrased it made it seem like, would you not have been here without that? Like, in regards of like, would you not be alive? Did that series save you from like whatever was going on at home or something? Like I said, I'm probably reading too deeply into it. It probably is just as simple as, I am where I am now as a cop because I pursued this life because of that show. So I don't know. I doubt they cover more on that going forward, but maybe they could. I don't know. We've only got 3 episodes left this season, so I'm curious to see what the next cases are going to be and how this all plays out and shapes out. But like I said, there continues to be these very like tragic stories. It's never like these murders aren't committed out of, and these situations aren't committed out of pure evil. There's always been an understanding of like, oh, it's just, they've always just been tragic situations every case so far. It's never just been a thing of like, oh, this, well, the exception being the VTuber one, because that guy killed someone out of pure, like, that's probably the most evil case we've had so far, because that guy was a stalker and he was obsessed and killed a guy that was trying to do the right thing. But it's still like a tragic because of like the fan that died trying to do right, so that's where the tragedy comes into the place in that. But there's been a lot of tragedy involved in all of it. I mean, murder, tragic all around and in its own capacity. So, but yeah, I've kind of rambled off enough. I'm interested to see, like I said, what the next episode has in store for us. I'm curious to see what the pacing of the next episodes are going to be, since there's only 3 episodes. I wonder when we get our first like 3 episode case. Maybe not. It might be like maybe the next maybe like episode 1 will be like 2 cases. Episode 10 will be 2 cases, and then episode 11 will be 2 cases, and then 12 will just be the finish up of that as well. That's what I'm curious. Let's see what the pacing is going to be. It'd be interesting if it ended up being 3, because I know, like, I believe Detective Conan, it's been a while since I've seen something. I think there's been like multiple, like, I know there's at least been 2 episode cases, but I want to say there's been at least 3 episode cases, but I could be misremembering. It's been a while. But anyway, like I said, enough rambling. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.